So let this be a bit of a lesson. Just like in entrepreneurship, things will always go wrong. This is a good example of that, but if you just work on it, you can improve it. So welcome everyone to our talk, Forging Independence, Turning Passion into Profit. You'll see later why that title is a bit funny if you ask me. But I want to get started on, maybe before I go into what is the talk, I want to talk about who is this talk for, because I don't know how many people here have actually read what this talk is about. Can I get a hand? Okay, that's more than...
Quite impressive.
Yeah, I expected 3 people maybe. So some of you know what it's about, some of you don't. Well, it's about turning passion into profit, and I think most of you are students who usually don't have that much money, so hey, we like profit over here. Who is this talk for? Don't worry, these are only slides with a lot of text, or with a lot of text. It's for either those who have been thinking that they can only, once you graduate here in hopefully 6 months, I really hope the best for you, you can work only for another company. So you can go to your Kronos or to whoever. That is one option. There is more options, so that's what this talk is about. And then the second one is maybe, I know some of the students here will probably have some entrepreneurial spirit. Maybe over the past few years, you've been expanding on some projects, you've made some new friends here at university. But you've never really made any money of it, it's just for fun, or maybe you're learning some new JavaScript framework that will be obsolete in 2 years anyway. Well, you can still maybe get some money out of it before it's fully deprecated. So I think that for most of the people, this talk will be important. So try not to sleep. If you do sleep, I will call you out personally, so watch out for me there. What's the goal, basically? I want to go and expand your horizon. So I work in sales a bit, so it's all about sharing the vision. The goal is to expand your horizons past your traditional employment, so as I said before, and getting you to pursue your dreams profitably, ideally. We left that part out, but follow your dream. That's always a good beginning. Now, why should you listen to us, and who are we? Well, I'm here accompanied by my favorite colleague, Thomas. He's currently still working as a .NET consultant for his 40-hour week. And then on top of that, he's also doing another 40-hour full-time week, basically, at BiteMe Games, where he's our play pretend CEO, we like to say, because we're not that big yet. And he's also the guy who does all of the programming. He's a programming lead, and who knows really in and out of how do game engines work, how does our code base work. He graduated here in 2021, so 2 years almost by now. And then you have me. I'm a data center architect at Cisco, so I studied the system and network administration here. And I am the creative director and producer, and as you'll see throughout this talk, I am basically everything that's not programming at BiteMe Games, because the programming guys, they only do programming, and I just get to clean up their mess. And I also used to be a self-employed networking consultant at my own company, Vans IT. I quit that now because there's only so much work you can really do in 1 week before you die. I graduated in 2020 from this school, so this is my second talk. Last year I gave one over networking, but this maybe not be interesting for everyone. So now we're talking about games and pursuing your passion and making money from games. One last plug, you can also follow us. We have a YouTube channel, BiteMe Games, where we upload a lot of content every week surrounding game development, surrounding making your own company, everything like that. Don't do it now. I want your attention on the presentation, but later you can always go and subscribe. We can bring up the slide again or whatever. Just one thing to keep in mind.
There were enough shameless plugs in this presentation, don't worry.
And with that out of the way, I think that is now time for Thomas, who will talk us a bit more about what is this next hour of suffering actually going to be like.
Yeah, so what are we going to go over? First of all, how did we get here? Because, well, 2 years ago we were over there, now we're here. What happened? Second is pursuing entrepreneurship. We're going to do this on a broad base, not specific for game dev, because that's our third topic, and that is how you make games and ideally make a profit with them. You'll also see Marnix is our resident meme lord at BiteMe Games, so there's a lot of memes in this presentation.
It's either that or a big wall of text. You can choose.
So first of all, how did we get here? So like we said, 2 years ago we were there, now we're here. About a year ago, it was New Year's Eve at 2021. We were at Marnix having some nice dinner, enjoying our time together as friends. And we were like, damn, we're only playing games well, we're not working, we're playing games. How about we start making one? Great idea, right? So we started, and we decided the first thing we're gonna make is Forge Industry, which is something Marnix will explain later because that's his slide. And we got started. This was going to be a 1-month project. Now we're hoping to release in Q2 2023. So that didn't age very well. So we started working, of course, very hyped, and after a month or two, progress was slowing down. 3 months, progress was slowing down. 4 months, progress was slowing down. Yeah, that was not going very well. So in August, I think it was August.
It was way too late and very stupid.
Yes.
So probably August.
Probably August. Martin came with the great, but also kind of, idiotic idea to just go to Gameforce. For those who don't know, Gameforce is Belgium's largest gaming convention.
Who here went to Gameforce?
Anyone?
Hey,
Did you see us there?
I hope you saw us.
Wait, can I see those hands again?
I feel like I see less hands this time.
Yeah. Yeah, so we were going to go there, but one problem, well, actually two. First of all, we weren't a company. Gameforce requires you to be a company. We got started with that one. We finished way too late. One day before Gameforce, we were ready to go. Nice in time. Second thing, well, if you're going to stand at Gameforce, you probably need a game. You know, it's kind of in the name. Well, problem number two, we didn't really have a game. We didn't really have a minimum viable product. We didn't have a demo. We didn't have anything presentable.
This presentation is a bit of a do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
You shouldn't wait 8 months to get a minimum viable product. We'll get to that later as well.
So we had 2 months from August to October 1st and 2nd to get all of that, well, figured out. Yeah.
Did I mention all 4 of us were also working full-time at other companies?
Yeah. I think we probably need to catch up some sleep from that period. So it was very stressful. Stress is a great motivator, we thought. Let's not go into that. And then Gameforce happened, great experience, and now we're basically here. A bit of networking here, a talk there, but nothing too major. But I keep saying we. Maybe we should actually explain who we is. Well, BiteMe Games are 4 people. Myself, left. Marnix, next to me. William, who's not here, and Jamie, who's somewhere over there. Marnix already explained what we do. William is our 2D artist, and well, was our 2D artist. Now he's just programming.
I'm now also the 2D artist.
Promotion. And then we have Jamie. I'd like to say he's a developer, but he's more like a refactor guy. He has made like our item system about 20 times already, so that's very impressive. And then, as you can see, we have like our clickbait arrows from YouTube, and you're pointing at our cute hats because, yeah, we graduated KdG just like you, hopefully.
I can't guarantee that you'll get those cute hats as well. You need to earn them, so you gotta work hard. Now, we keep talking about our game and how great we are, but maybe we should explain what is our game. Maybe just to add some context. We're not selling it to you here. I mean, you can't buy it yet because Q2 2023 is our release. You can, of course, wishlist us on Steam. That one we can. Again, do it after the presentation. If you do it now, I will call you out personally. What is our game? Let's give you the quick pitch because I've given this like 500 times a day, I think, on Gameforce in every possible language you can imagine that I knew. It's a resource management and automation game. So some people in the crowd probably have something like, what the hell is he saying? And some people will be like, I want that. That's what we learned at Gameforce at least. If you know a game like Factorio or Satisfactory or any other automation, I see some nods, that's good. That's where we started upon. However, we had some flaw, or we thought that we can improve something. We can improve the way that items be transported. So the goal of the game is, for those who don't know what a resource management and automation game is, you basically just make stuff. You can see it as you have a little factory. That's, for example, how Factorio works. It's in the name a bit, duh. And you have to optimize everything. But we don't like it that way because we think Factorio was too dark and we wanted something more lighthearted and everything. So we came up with Forge Industry, which is set in a medieval world where you're a blacksmith. So everything is made in blacksmithing terms. So you're making swords, you're making tankards, you're making all of these fancy items, which is a lot more approachable. But of course, you don't have conveyor belts in a traditional fantasy world, or at least not in the history classes that I got. And that's where we differ. We have a custom written pot finding application that really makes it a completely different way that you have to think about how do I connect all of my buildings. Some people are looking at me very focused. I feel like they're interested in this.
Space-time pot finding.
I feel like we could make a talk about that on our own, but that's William's stuff, and he will first need like 2 hours to cry because he has spent a lot of time on working on it. It's good, but it's hard. How does that look? I should have a GIF. It's a bit small, but you can see all of our little workers. They're basically walking around and they're constantly having to calculate what is the best pod. All of our pods, they have certain capacities, they have speeds, they need to make sure that they don't collide with each other. You have all of the different buildings. You have wood saws, you have your marketplaces, you have your forges, you have your refinement stations, alloy stations, smelters, all of those things. They all have to link up to each other, and you need to do it as efficiently as possible. Because the more efficiently, the more money you can make, and then the more buildings you can purchase, the more things you can buy, more resources you can craft, general stuff of, progression system, and in the end, you want to marry one or all the princes and princesses in your world. We got some fancy art as well, just so the GIF doesn't keep playing. But yeah, that's in short what our game is about. Now, of course, maybe I want to share a bit more about Gameforce. That's also something I can recommend. Gameforce was really fun. It was a lot of pain, don't get me wrong. 2 months to make a game from basically, we had something, if you go to our YouTube channel, let me plug it again, but don't do it now. You can see we have monthly devlogs. So you can see when we started how ugly our game was, and then how our game was still ugly, but with a little bit more features, and it just kept being ugly and a bit more features, but you couldn't really play it. So we had our item system, we had our road system, we had our world system, but none of them could interact to each other yet, which was the problem basically. So we had 2 months to get all of that working, but in the end, I think you really didn't see this. We were quite a big booth, honestly, and we were like right next to the entrance between the 2 halls. Did anyone else see it here? Who went to Gameforce? Okay, I'm just gonna ignore that and pretend someone saw it. But in general, it's really fun, honestly, if you go to these kind of conventions to one seat on the other side. It's very tiring. Gameforce was 2 days, and at the end of those 2 days, I think nobody of us could stand anymore or could talk anymore. And we had, we all get French classes here, or I think you guys are still the last unlucky ones who have French. Gameforce is in Brussels, so yeah, suddenly we had to go and do a lot of French pitching as well, which was a very big challenge for us as well, because just like you, we probably weren't that great in French. But yeah, in general, you can see it was a fun experience. So it is nice to go to these events. So we'll actually get back to that, why these events are actually so good. You shouldn't just make a game or a product or whatever, you should also get it out there in the world. And I think that Thomas can tell us a bit more about what we learned there.
Yeah, a couple of things we learned. First of all is, if we can do it, you guys can do it. We didn't do anything special. We made a lot of mistakes, actually.
We made too many mistakes.
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do. So if this is anything, like if you can take anything from this talk, just remember, there is no entry barrier. You can just do it. So don't give up on your dreams just yet. We might crush those dreams later on, but promise for later. The second thing is conventions are great. We did have a lot of fun, great feedback. You get to promote your product and so on. So if you have the chance to go to a convention, try to go there. It's a great experience. Another thing we learned, our planning sucks. Yours will as well, because, well, planning is very, very hard. Like I said, we wanted to do this in 1 month. We've been busy for almost a year and a month, and we're still not done. So add like 1.5 years to your initial planning, and maybe you're close. And another thing we learned, if you do this on the side, your motivation is, well, very hard to keep up at all times. So going to a convention and having positive feedback is immensely valuable. A lot of our team members struggled with motivation.
I quickly want to say this does not represent average team encouragement at BiteMe Games. This is purely set up. We do actually like our workers. Sometimes.
Sometimes. But yeah, like I said, just your motivation is very important if you do this on the side. Even if you do this full time, it is very important to get feedback as quickly as possible. So try to get feedback from anyone outside of your group. But yeah, that's enough about us. Why we're here, we want to make money.
So how do we make money? Okay, this sounds like a Vsauce intro. You probably have had some accounting classes which you hopefully attended, or at least you passed the exams to get here. So you probably have some idea of, okay, how do businesses work? But I'll quickly recap for those who slept through most of the lessons. There's two kinds of businesses in general, if you boil it down now. You can either sell solutions to problems, or you can sell your time and knowledge. Those are the two main ways that you can go entrepreneurial. So what do I mean? Well, the first one, selling time and knowledge, is what I, for example, did in my old company where I used to be a networking consultant for Vans IT, so my own one. What I did there is I sold my time to go and install networks for small and medium businesses. The big problem there is, of course, you can only have so much time. The second option is selling solutions to problems. This is the one that we want to focus on further along in this talk, but let's quickly dive into the first one again. Selling your time. I've got this nice picture here. You're basically a freelancer at that point, and you're looking for work actively on your own. So imagine maybe some of you have been job searching. You have it quite easy right now, I think, because in IT there is not that much struggle unless you're working at Google or Microsoft right now. But you still need to find work on your own. And at some point it's like, okay, I'm working for other people. Let's say I was implementing networks for other companies. At some point the question is, of course, if you're working 40 hours on that, well, what's the difference with just going to work at another company where you have stability, where you have benefits and everything? Because in the end, if you have a freelancer, yeah, you can ask for more money, but you need to still pay taxes on it. You still need to make your own reimbursement plans. You need to find your own time. You need to find your customers. So like here, sometimes it can be hard to plan out on everything. Your life can be very hectic for 1 month and then 3 months off. Okay, great, I'm gonna go broke if I don't find new customers soon. You don't have that problem here, but then of course you're just at traditional employment. Problem is, of course, there's only so many hours in a week. Yeah, you can go to maybe 40 hours a week, but if you really want to scale this business, you need to start hiring other people, which is quite expensive, and then you need to ask an overhead if you want to keep any profit. So in general, as we have it here as well, for those who've seen The Matrix, in my opinion, it's the blue pill. Now we're taking the red pill and we're going to enlighten our minds. Let me go back. Selling your product. So this one is the best one if you want to make money, but it's the worst one if you want to make money quickly. So with the previous one, it's quite easy. You have a job, you work 1 hour, you get paid for 1 hour. With this one, you have a product, you work 1 year on your product and you get paid nothing. Or it depends on how good you are at selling, but in general, when you're developing a product, there will be a long time in the beginning of your company where you won't be making much money. Because of course you need to first make the product, and then you need to find people to sell it to, and you need to keep improving it and everything, which is not ideal. However, this is also the one that can scale. This is where ideas like, passive income and all those rich guy gurus on YouTube come in. This is what you would want in the end, of course. I'm not selling you a course here on drop shipping or whatever. This is not easy, like I said. If you're really doing this, you're gonna need to take some time before you can actually make a lot of money. We have made money, don't worry. So we're not completely broke, but but we are still in that struggle period, you can say, where it's not easy and we can't just go business class fly to, I don't know, Haiti every week to go chill there or something. Now, how do you make that successful product? Well, that's a bigger problem because I can tell you about the great visions and everything, but sometime you will need to make that product. That's where Thomas comes in.
Yeah, to create a good product, you basically need 3 things. The first thing is a hook. That was very loud, sorry. So, what is a hook? A lot of you might know it already, but it's just basically something to captivate your audience, to get their attention, things like that, to get them to be more invested in your game, to get them to want to know more. An example of this would be if I said, I'm making a game with a vast landscape, very big, and from the get-go, we get to go anywhere we want. No restrictions. Pretty cool, right? It's a bit of an eye catcher, and well, you want to know more. That's where the second thing comes in, a USP. Not that kind of USP, but it's a unique selling proposition. And what is that? Well, what differentiates your product from the competitors? An example of this once again is, for example, I take the Souls formula from Dark Souls and things like that, and put it in a vast open world. Pretty unique. And the third pillar you want to build upon is, well, a pillar. And that is basically, what is your game built upon? What is the core identity? This can be something like very challenging combat that is also very rewarding, things like that.
Does anyone know by the next previous 3 examples, what game are we talking about? Did anyone pay? Oh, yeah, that's right. You win nothing. Congratulations.
Exactly, it's Elden Ring. And that's how you know you have a successful product. Because I just, with about 3 sentences, explained to you a game that took hundreds of thousands of man-hours. And if you can create a product where people recognize the title by just selling the 3 pillars, so to say, you have a very successful product. And even if they can't name your title, but you have those 3, you have a great starting point to start selling to your customer. Now, there's one little bit of a catch. I'm saying customer. Yeah. Who is your customer though?
Yeah, so you can have the greatest product ever, but of course you don't know who do you sell this to. I've got here this nice blue ocean for you who maybe have paid attention during management or who have some personal interest. This is basically the idea of a blue ocean strategy. We need to find customers. We need to find a niche because we want something that is very specific, yet broad enough still that we can actually compete with it. So for example, why did we not go and make toothpaste? Because it's too broad of an audience. Like, yeah, we can make toothpaste and it may be very good toothpaste, but we're not gonna sell that to anyone because we have too much competition. It's a red ocean that's filled with sharks who ate all the fish. Maybe toothpaste is not the best idea if you go from toothpaste to games, but hey, thank you for nodding. I will just ignore all of this. Point is, we wanted a blue ocean. So what we have is a resource automation game. And if you go to Steam, there's a tag for it, which is already a warning, red. There's a lot of resource automation games. So then we need to go and to see what is our hook, what is our USP, and what is our pillar. And we need to find something that's different. What's unique for us is we have that pod finding algorithm. We don't have rigid set conveyor belts. We have dynamic pods with multiple stops and all of that. That's something that we are very unique in. So what we just did is we found this new piece of just blue ocean where there is nothing in it. Blue Ocean, for those who don't know, it's from Blue Ocean Strategy, which is some business book that is quite big when it comes to finding new customer niches. And you need to find something that is unique, but that you can also talk about. So it's usually something that you are interested in, because if you're interested in something, there's always someone else in the world, and most likely multiple people in the world who are interested in it. So what I would suggest is that you don't look for, okay, what do I think that the market needs, even though I don't have the biggest feeling for it. Instead, it's something with, what am I very passionate about? What do I know something about? And what do I think maybe a bit not right with it, or what can I tweak upon it, like how we did with our roads and our pathfinding, to make it that niche, to give it that unique selling proposition. That's the core part. That is who defines who's gonna buy our game and who's going to be our customer. So I think for that one, I can go on for this too long as well, but I'm just gonna ignore that. Find something that's unique, find something that you do know that some people will be interested in. You can always go around and ask here even, as long as there's more than one person interested into it, you can probably scale it because like we're doing games, we want to make an internet product, we can sell to 8 billion people. Doesn't matter if they're local in Belgium, they don't need to speak Dutch, for example, they just need to have internet and we can sell to them. So there will be people who are interested in it, maybe just don't go too niche.
Maybe a quick little test. Is anyone interested in our product? Otherwise, we probably have to go back to the drawing board, I think. Hands? Okay, I see a couple of hands. We're not completely screwed, perhaps.
That's good. So we didn't get paid to say this, and they don't know that we were going to say this, but we do quickly want to give a shout out to Karel de Grote as well here, because we've been, I see some pictures. I call you out, don't worry. We just want to quickly say this because we've been on networking events with other schools, and maybe you're sitting here as well with some belief of like, what are we doing here? Karel de Grote is not a game development school. Probably some of you, when you were first choosing schools, were probably looking at something like Houwest in Kortrijk, or something like St. Lucas School of Arts, or I think KdG even has a game development specific course in Hoboken. Yet we chose to go here. And I want to say that it was a very good decision, in my opinion, because what we have learned is that, honestly, it doesn't matter that you go to a game development school or not, because we didn't do it. And okay, there maybe need some considerations, like for example, We're 3 full stack programmers who graduated here. We're not gonna make a vast open world game that is based upon how do engines work, how does programming, like procedural art and everything works. We didn't learn that. What did we learn? We learned business logic. We learned how to write applications. And basically what our program is just an application where we make things interact with each other with a 3D interface that you can click on and you can change it instead of a HTML or a .NET application in like, you know, Windows or whatever. It's just a bit more fancy. I learned game development and especially 3D modeling just when these guys told me, hey, you're doing our 3D models now. I never touched it before. Because I think that also what you learn here very much is to learn new things as well and have the work discipline to actually learn things. And I think Thomas also has a very great example of this, of when we were on Gameforce, for example, or when we go to other events, we do notice that there is a big distinction between people who studied here versus the other schools, shall we say.
Yeah, so an example of this is we were at Gameforce and this student came up to me. He was like, I see you're using procedural generation in your game. Pretty cool. I'm doing my master's thesis on this one. Can you give me some tips? Can we talk about this? And we never learned this at KdG, but just by having the passion, wanting to learn more and actually having that broad knowledge base you learn here basically, you can apply it to a lot of different topics. And this doesn't count only for game development, but everything that is IT related, basically.
It's always funny, you know, when we were there at Gameforce, we just been crunching for 2 months, and I think we got about 5 people every day who were like, can we come and do an internship at your company? And we just have to awkwardly tell them, like, yeah, so our company exists for 3 days now. We don't have an office. We can't pay you. Maybe wait a bit, but sure, you'll do great without us.
Even then, some schools thought it was a good idea. So the standards are high here. All right, then what are you gonna do? You're maybe quite excited now to get started. Are you going to do this full-time or on the side? That's quite a big question. And I can't answer it for you, basically. You have to do what you want. First of all, if you think you like playing games, that doesn't mean you like making games. There's a very big distinction. You wouldn't be the first person that loves playing them but doesn't enjoy making them. It's also a lot of work. So think about it before you get started. Also, take into account the benefits and drawbacks. It's very easy to get carried away and just say, I'm going to do this full time, but one day you're probably going to need money. And if you're doing it full time, you might not have it for a long time. Also, if you're only doing it on the side, remember, you have a lot less time. You maybe have to sacrifice your free time, stuff like that. Also, again, do as I say, not as I do. You guys are in a very privileged position right now. You can already start today. You have half a year head start. We didn't have that.
After this talk.
Not after this talk. So if you're interested, while you're a student, you have a lot of free time you actually don't have when you're working. So try to get started. And also it helps you bridge the gap. Because if, like Martin said, it takes you a year to get money, you're already spending half a year. Now means you only have to be half a year without a job before you can get started making money, right?
Time will pass anyway. Will you watch YouTube videos or will you make games? I know one sounds more fun than the other, but if you're looking at why not make YouTube videos about making games? That's what we did. Speaking of that, marketing. How do you market a game or a product? Well, here I quickly want to talk about so we just had a great talk about how good Karel de Grote is for our IT. Let me now summarize the entire marketing degree you can get here in like 3 minutes. So you'll have a product. You need to market that product. How do you do that? That's actually a big question and has changed a lot lately. And unfortunately, it comes down to this. Influencers. Ew. Probably not everyone is the biggest fan, and then not just these kinds of people. TikTok, YouTube. I personally am I'm too old for this stuff, I usually think. Unfortunately, it works, and it works really well. And what this basically means is that the way we do marketing has really changed over the past few years. Before, how did you do marketing? Before the internet, it was you had to buy posters outside on the street, or you had to go only to the events like Gameforce. Now, Gameforce is actually more of a fun thing and not a big income source anymore. Because on Gameforce, we only had about 21,000 visitors last year, which, okay, 21,000 visitors may seem like a high number. But if you make one 10-second TikTok video of like your character in your game doing a weird ragdoll dance or whatever, they can get 1 million views. And at that point, it's like, why did we even bother standing for 2 days straight and giving explanations when I could have just made this crappy TikTok with some bootleg Justin Bieber song over it?
Someone is salty.
Definitely not. If TikTok, however, is not your jam, it wasn't for us at least. We've played around with it, but we didn't feel like, we don't have the feeling, I don't have the knowledge of how does it work. I figured, what do I know a lot? I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I probably have an idea how YouTube works. So what do? As I said before, we decided to, from the beginning, start making devlogs, start making YouTube content, because now our game is still being developed, yet we have a bunch of wish lists, we have actually a bunch of sales as well, and we have an online following that really comes and looks at our videos, that knows our channel, that knows our name, and that knows our game. We haven't spent anything, okay, we have spent the money on Gameforce. That one aside, we haven't spent anything on our YouTube channel, for example, and we've got a whole bunch of views on that one already, a whole bunch of subscribers, a whole bunch of Steam wishlists for that. In general, if you need to pay for ads, your product is not good. If you need to start paying for Google AdWords, stuff like that, you don't want that. Then if you really want to splurge, get some influencer to play your game or whatever, or to review your product. But that's generally the way that advertising works nowadays. There you go, that's my mini marketing degree. Don't use TikTok is better for content that is visually stimulating. Maybe let me quickly add on to that one. Our game is resource management and automation. Let's be honest, it sounds very boring. We're not putting that on TikTok with some fun music, and it's not going to get a lot of views. It's more, long form YouTube content. But if you have something that's very visual, for example, some like action game that you play against each other, put it on TikTok, you'll get so many views, you'll get so many following in like 1 month. It's stupid how good it works. Just have to trust the algorithm, that's all. And then one more part, so you have marketing and then you have networking. I did a talk about networking last year here for the poor people who had to retake this course. I hope nobody won't be talking about this kind of networking anymore. I'm sorry, Cisco. I'm talking about this kind of networking. So this picture here is from Unwrap, which is the biggest event in Belgium basically for game professionals. So Gameforce is more for consumers. Unwrap is in Kortrijk because that's where Howest is also and where all of the games industry is, if we're honest about it. This is where you go to look for game development jobs, where you go and pitch your games to publishers. This is in October of every year normally in Kortrijk. And this is where you network with other people. There's a bunch of other networking events, of course. We'll get to those later as well. But this is another thing you really need to learn. And it's also important to just be good at networking. I know we're all sweaty gamer nerds sometimes when we are here. But if we want to make a product successful, you will need to get out there and you will need to talk to people. And honestly, it's also just fun to hear about other people, their struggles, so you know that you're not alone. It's also fun to hear about other people's ideas, and they always have a lot of good feedback as well. These people can probably give you the best feedback also on like how do you change your game, what are the latest trends, what is everything really. Here's where the smart people are. That's something you need to know. You need to go out there and you need to talk to them. And then one last thing, starting a company, don't be like us and do it last minute. As I said, we have it 1 or 2 days before Gameforce that we needed it. Start it on time. However, don't start it immediately. That's a bit of an intricate balance you need to see. If you can see that you're in about 6 months, you'll be making money, then you should start now with the company. Even if it doesn't really make any money for the next 4 months, you can still start putting, writing off things on it. You can start evading some taxes. Not that I suggest that at all. How do you start a company? What kind of company should you start for? I hereby refer to our great school, where you've probably already learned a bit about the BV's, about all the different kinds of forms about it. We're doing a VOF. It all depends on, are you alone? Are you with other people? What is your product? Are there liabilities? Stuff like that. You can always message us as well if you want about more info, but you should have some idea about this already. And the second important thing about starting a company is to just do it. It's scary at first because, it costs money. Everything in life costs money. You'll learn that soon enough, or you'll probably learn it as already know that. You just have to do it because you can't really, you can earn money, but it is not legal, and we would never condone trying to earn money without a company structure. And it's not that big of a hassle, honestly. You just have to sign a bunch of papers until your hand starts bleeding, And then you have a company, basically, and you hand over a big check to some notary or your accountant.
And Marnix just said starting a company. Well, this is a very interesting slide because we added 2 words and bottom there, in Belgium. And that is just to give you an idea of what the game industry looks like in Belgium. Most of you that know a bit about the gaming industry probably know the big one in Belgium, Larian. They make like AAA games like Baldur's Gate 3, Divinity Original Sins.
And Get Net Kick, don't forget that one, for the OGs around here. It's made by Larian.
Yeah, I also didn't know that until like a week ago. Yeah, so we're just going to give you some numbers so you know what the gaming industry looks like. First of all, we like money. Let's take a look at how it's progressing. So we can see in the last 3 years, we've been on a steady rise. Means nice, it's a growing market. It's also the biggest market for entertainment in the world. So there's a lot of potential. For the key item on you might see 2018 to 2019, there was a dip. And well, the reason why, in 2017, at the end of it, Divinity Original Sin was released. 2018, it still sold very well. Yeah, Larian is still a very big part of this slide. So it's not the only one, but it has a very big impact.
Something about data science and outliers. It's been too long since I've had those courses, but you'll probably know it better than me by now.
Yeah. So where are these studios located? I mean, I thought it was very interesting to see that in Antwerp, we're actually the 2nd biggest province in Belgium. So that's pretty cool. And I was also very surprised that West Flanders was only the 3rd. Why? Because, well, they have a school for gaming there, which is pretty weird. Surprisingly, East Flanders is the biggest. They probably steal all the good knowledge from, well, our West and the West and KdG, because they're in the middle. Also, if you want to be the first person in Luxembourg, this is your chance to move there, start a company, and you can be #1 here, which is, it's always nice when you can say you're the first one.
Good thing you're still getting French.
Yeah. And then lastly, well, the company's size. It is always measured in full-time equivalents. The big one at the top, who might that be? Well, Larian. The second one is Happy Volcano, I think.
Anyone here know the game You Suck at Parking or Happy Volcano? Well, they're supposedly the 2nd biggest company.
I didn't know either.
Yeah.
And we're probably at the micro, and we hope to be soon #2 at the large. So let's see how that goes. The main reason I'm showing these slides is because the gaming market is growing in Belgium. There is a lot of hope. Get your dreams up. The game dev dream is definitely alive. Right, Marnix?
So, the game dev dream. Let's quickly set some expectations, do a little reality check. As we say, you'll have a very good diploma when you graduate here. If you go into game dev and work for another company, you're throwing away money. There's the only way we can say it really. This meme perfectly exemplifies that. If you're a programmer and you go to some consultant and you go and do Power BI consultancy for some random multinational company, you'll get a good pay, you'll get a company car, you'll get all of those things. Maybe you'll lose a bit of your soul, but hey, you get a lot of money. That's not the case with game development. With game development, you can forget usually the car, you can forget the high pay. And why is that? Well, unfortunately, it's just for the reason that people like games. And that means that a lot of people go into game development and it's just their dream to make games. And they don't care if they get a mediocre or below average salary. They just want to pursue their passion and follow their dreams or whatever. So the good news is you have a diploma from a non-game development school, which means that even if you want to get hired at a game development company, you'll probably have a much harder time. Good news is you can still go independent, which is what we did, and then you don't have these problems. You can just pay yourself whatever you want.
0.
Speaking of money, some other things that you'll probably hear about is publishers, about EA, all of those things, probably not the best standing. If you're probably hearing me talk here and you're like, okay, do I need a publisher if I want to make my game? First of all, If you're only now thinking about making a game, just forget the slide. You don't need a publisher. You just need to make a game. We'll talk again in a year or something when you finally have something. But publishers is another big one that they can be good. They can also very often be bad. And maybe if you're already working on something, publishers is something that's quite unique to game development. If you're making another product, it's less publishers, but it might be venture capitalists. We also have those in Belgium. We even have them specifically for game development. The problem is, of course, you have to give up part of your equity, you have to give up part of your profits usually, and you also sometimes lose things like creative freedom. Don't worry about it. Make your own game. All I can say for now. However, maybe later on you want money, or if you're going, like we said earlier, you're starting today, you have a vertical slice in 6 months when you're about to graduate, you walk to a publisher, well, maybe you can go that way. Or what you can also do is you can go to VAF. This is something that we in Belgium are very unique in. This is something that only Belgium really has all over the world. What is VAF? It's the Vlaams Audiovisueel Fonds. I don't know, it sounds very boring. They give money for games. The government pays you to make games. It's crazy, I know. It's some of the best support you can get in the world for games. And what's the catch? There is none. You can take their money and you can try to pay them back. If you can't pay them back, they don't care. They just give it to you. It's basically subsidized game development. Suddenly a lot of people are interested, I feel.
It's still a lot of work, so remember that.
There's still a lot of work indeed. One catch with the funding, because I hear so many people are interested, it's up to 50% of your total investment. However, if you start working on a game today, because you see these numbers, track every hour you do. Every hour you do will count as a part of an investment. So if you, maybe let's quickly work out, you pay yourself a hypothetical 20 euros an hour, you don't have to pay that, but every hour you work is worth 20 euros. If you then work, man, I'm bad at math, 40,000 hours, then you get at 800,000 total cost. They'll pay you up to 400,000, basically. Although you haven't had to pay any money, you've just invested your time. This also is coupled if we're with multiple people, that's more hours, and there you go. You then need to apply with VAF, so you need to make a file. It's pretty long, it's about 50 pages where you just need to explain your game, you need to explain your hooks, your pillars, your unique selling propositions, all of that thing. Maybe if you have done some market research, and then you have to apply and they'll see, maybe they'll be interested in it. Usually, if you don't get into the first round, you get into the second round and then easy.
Also something that's very important. At the start of the talk, I said, go to a convention if you can. If you have a convention, you also have feedback. They like that.
They'll even come to you on the convention usually to be like, hey, by the way, have you heard of us? We want to give you money. So they're really chill people. And yeah, there's no catch here. So even if there's no publisher, reach out to them. They also have a bunch of cool events. They also go to GDC and all of those places, and they can partially fund those trips as well. And then maybe one last thing that I want to talk about is, okay, you guys are all hyped now for making your own game. I want to give some quick tips basically on what would I advise you guys before you make your game. First one is scope creep. You probably have a very cool idea now. I saw you like poke your friends and everything. You're like, oh my God, this is gonna be so cool. We're gonna have this and this and this and this and this. You're never gonna finish your game. That's the problem. We were gonna do it in 1 month. But then we were like, our world should be 3D. We should have multiple kinds of roads. We should have multiple buildings. We should have reworked all of this. And we just kept on adding. The latest meme we have now is I suddenly decided 1 month in the development, we need to have trains in our game. Trains is gonna be the best thing. And none of them were smart enough to be like, Marnix, that's a dumb idea, stop.
I said it from the start, you just continued implementing it.
Well, you didn't stop me hard enough. So the problem is, it's really cool to think about features, but making them an actual reality, programming them is, you'll probably have encountered that even now where you like work on a project for school and it's like, oh, I just need to give the user a changeable picture. How hard can it be? I'll do that in like 10 minutes, and then suddenly it's like 3 a.m. at night on a Tuesday or something, and you're like, oh, I have class in 5 hours. That's amplified in game development, because suddenly you have this engine that you need to work with that nobody really knows exactly how it's gonna act out. So what I would say is just start as small as you can, and then once you think you have something really small, go smaller. And you really can't go small enough in the beginning. make your vertical slice. If you want to go the funding route, make something that you can really just show, this is what my base game is going to be like, and you can still iterate upon that later.
Maybe explain what a vertical slice is for those who don't know.
Vertical slice, similar to how we said minimum viable product. Minimum viable product is basically, it's ugly, but it works. So that's, if you have our thing, what we had at Gameforce was our minimum viable product. Our models weren't great, but we could build items, we could make our roads. A vertical slice is more if you have, for example, an open world RPG game, it's one mission. So everything is polished within that one slice, and the rest of the game is ugly and doesn't work, but you have one mission that is like, this is the quality level I want to go for with my game. That's the difference. Both of them are good if you want to step to a publisher. It just depends on your genre and what you want to focus on. It's maybe a bit harder to have a vertical slice if you have no 3D artists and you're only programmers, then you would instead go for something like minimum viable product using pre-made assets and everything like that. Another big question I get is, what engines should I start with? Because, of course, we have Unity, we have Unreal, we have CryEngine, we have Game Maker Studio. Please don't do Game Maker Studio. And we have Godot and a bunch more. We have RPG Maker. We have writing your own engine. If you do that, I will personally come to your house and just burn your computer. Don't make your own engine. It doesn't matter. Make your game. I think I've said it a lot of times now. Whatever you do, just make something. Make it as bad as you want, but sit down today and start programming, start working, start designing something. The engine doesn't matter. You can't go wrong. Okay. You really want me to tell you what engine to use? Use Unity, use Unreal, or use Godot. Use one of the three. If you can't decide, just flip a coin.
A three-sided coin? Really?
Flip a D3 or whatever. You can you can decide it. It doesn't matter. It's 3 different programming languages, but in general, you can make any game in any engine. So don't bother with it for now. If you're making a game that really needs a specific engine, your scope is too big. Make your scope smaller. Can you click? It died?
Nope.
Huh.
It lost focus.
Okay. And then one more thing I want to say is follow your passion. That's probably why a lot of you people maybe even started studying IT in the first place, because you were like, I have no idea what I want to do. I just like playing games. I guess I'll go and study IT. I feel like there's some of you who were like that. I was at least. But following your passion will not get you a game. Making a game is very much not as fun as playing games. It takes a long time, and honestly, you'll just need some discipline and some focus, and you'll need to work on it for at least a month, maybe 1.5 years like us, maybe more, maybe less. But there is just a point where you need to sit down, think about the money, think about whatever, think about how you envision your future to be, and just keep on working. And that's the hard part, and there is one advantage to that. Or one thing that you can do to combat that is get your game out there. That's what we did with YouTube, for example. We immediately started making videos of our game, and if 1 month in, we already get comments like, hey, this looks interesting. That helps you with keeping up motivation, keeping up the, we're doing something great. That's why we did Gameforce, because our game was, a bit stuck. It wasn't going that great. We needed some good feedback. We went to Gameforce. We got so much good feedback, and honestly, not that much bad. So I feel like people were overly optimistic or whatever, but hey.
Start earlier.
Don't do it in 2 months. It sounds very fun, it's not. Next Gameforce is in October next year, so if you start now, you should have a bit of comfort. If you wait a few more months, it will be pain.
And visit us.
I'm looking at you.
And lastly, we're going to give a couple of resources that we would recommend if you would want to start right now. Marnix already mentioned VIF for funding. They also help you with networking, things like that.
They also do coaching.
Coaching?
For free, completely free.
Then we have VLEGA, which is the Flemish Gaming Association, which basically is a group of people that just say, hey, this is a networking event, you're welcome to join, always good. And they also help you with going to conventions. They even give you discounts for certain conventions and so on. Then we put ourselves in there. Aha. And you can basically just go to our YouTube, learn some things, or even just message us, hello@bitemegames.com, and we will be glad to help you out further. And then we have DAI Studios, which is a Belgian incubator and accelerator, which is basically fancy speak for saying they help you with growing your business, networking once again, and also things like, how you even get started, because from scratch, basically. And well, I think that's it, right?
Yeah, I want to add one more thing to DIA Studios. So DIA, Digital Arts and Entertainment, that's the name of the bad school in Houwest. Okay, not bad school, that's the game dev school.
Inferior to KdG.
Inferior to KdG, maybe. Keep in mind, they have really great programs, however, they're all in Kortrijk, so it may be a bit harder, but they have they have a program called 2 games a month, where for, I think, 3 or 6 months, they coach you in making a game every 2 weeks. It's really good if you have the time for it, of course, there's a problem. They have a shortened version, 1 game a month or something, where for 1 or 2 months, they coach you making a game. They also do venture capitalism and investment funding, basically, they're a publisher, basically, if you want to go and pitch your game somewhere and just VIF alone is not enough. You can also combine that with an incubator or an investor, for example. And yeah, that's basically a very short story of how we got here. Does anyone have questions?
Also, this is a time to scan this thing and wish list our game.
I will not call you out anymore now. You there.
Out of sheer curiosity, which engine did you end up going with?
I think he's our lead programmer, so he knows the best answer.
We chose Unity, mainly because most of us know C#, and also because I worked in Unity for 10 years already, since I was very small. And if I had to choose then, and the others didn't really have any much experience, the decision was quite obvious for us. Anyone else?
I saw you guys are also working next to your projects. Did you have issues with contracts and like that you can't publish software because you work?
That's a good question.
I think you looked it up more than me.
Yeah, I looked it up. Almost in every contract that you sign, at your real job, so to say, they will say, if you want to do that, you maybe can, but you have to discuss it with us. So you have to ask, because there's basically a non-compete, which means you can't be a consultant if you're working at a consultant company, things like that. So you do have to ask them. Also, since I have a bit of time, shameless plug, we have a video about combining your real job and game dev on video, on YouTube. Anyone else?
How do you protect your ID? That a big company is not recreating it in like 1 month?
You can't.
I think, yeah, okay, yeah. You can't, but indeed, that's something that a lot of beginner developers, and you also notice at these game development networking events, is like, oh, I have this idea, but I need you to sign this NDA. Nobody is interested in your idea. Everyone has their own ideas. Everyone thinks their own ideas are the best thing. And in general, if you have truly a revolutionary idea, generally still not a lot of people will be going and diving into it. Yeah, it's a lot of people fear for it, but it has happened at least very often, very not often, when we go to networking events about something like that happening. Everyone is already busy on their own stuff, and generally it's just, yeah, not worth it to stop your own project and go faster than the person who originally had the idea. Yeah, you could be a big company, but of course it's a very big risk still, games. Games can be still a banger or not. Maybe something as small as, you know, the game is actually very bad, but just 2 fun TikToks have suddenly given it like 10,000 wishlists in a week. You can't predict those things. It's very uncertain still. So it's not, you know, I make something and it's very easy. This is of course a bit different if you're more in, you know, the business of, oh, I'm gonna make this technology that is gonna optimize video compression or whatever. Then it's maybe a different story, but that's less where we have the experience in, and then you could of course get patents and everything like that, but we don't have an idea about that. Generally, games also don't have as many patents on them in like mechanics-wise and everything.
Also, if you start your marketing early, people will know you first. Any other questions?
I guess that's it then.
I guess that's it.
We even gave you 3 extra minutes, so now you can all go to our YouTube and wishlist our game and, you know, all of that stuff.